Level 5, Research Across Schools. Now let us look at how school level comparative educational research can be conducted. So whenever you are taking school as a unit of analysis, then you look at or you try to observe what are the specific communities that comprise those schools. Who are the people in there? So who are the main actors? Who has been given access and who is not? And whatever is being done in the school, how things are implemented, whatever the practices are, they all comprise institutional culture. So institutional culture also becomes a foci, and it is an essential part of school-based research. However, whenever you take up schools, ये ख्याल रखिएगा कि schools जो होते हैं, they are not insulated from a wider socio-political or socio-economic conditions prevalent in the context within which they are embedded. कोई insulated नहीं होते हैं. So schools do reflect to a certain extent whatever is happening outside. दो तरीके से करते हैं, या एक तो करिकुलम से कर सकते हैं और एक हम जिसको कहते हैं हिडन करिकुलम. हिडन करिकुलम वो होता है जो टीचर्स अब वैल्यूज जो बच्चों को किसी तरह से कम्युनिकेट करते हैं, पनिशमेंट से करेंगे या उनको थोड़ा सा रिप्रिमांड करेंगे और सही और गलत में जो तमीज बता रहे होते हैं, वो दैट इज द हिडन करिकुलम ऑफ द स्कूल्स. All of this is taken into account when you are looking at schools. अब schools को अगर आपने as unit of analysis लेना है, तो you can take schools within the same country. ऐसा भी कर सकते हैं. You can take schools within a given province. You can take schools within a district also, depending on the purpose of your research. And whatever you do, the context must be kept in mind कि उसमें कुछ ना कुछ ऐसी similarity जरूर हो जिसके basis पे आपने वो schools वहाँ पे उठाए हैं. However, if you want to see the differences because of those socio-political differences, then of course you have to keep in mind the differences also. लेकिन आपका logic of selection should be very clear. Now looking at the cross-national studies, yes, you can pick up schools from here, from one country, and you can pick up schools from some other countries to compare a specific types of school also. Yeah, different types of schools operating in similar states. एक study हुई थी Israel में, and they took the sample was 104 secular schools, and what they wanted to see was that how much diversity or how much homogeneity was present in these schools. Now, Israel does have this centralized policy that it gives guidelines for a national curriculum, which has to be implemented throughout Israel. And what they realized was that despite working on the same curricular guidelines, there was sufficient diversity across the schools because how those curricular guidelines were interpreted and implemented in the forms of teaching practices and the curriculum was different across schools. So, जब आप centralized policies की या centralized curriculum की बात करते हैं, it does not really mean that the system would also be, all the schools will also be homogeneous in terms of learning inputs and learning outputs. एक और study हुई थी सिंगापुर और ऑस्ट्रेलिया में. What these researchers wanted to see is कि कितना internationalized curriculum is being used by Singapore and Australia. And the schools they chose were the schools that were international, that claimed themselves to be international. And they wanted to look at their curricula. What they realized was कि कितना कोई स्कूल इंडिपेंडेंट है या इंटरनेशनलाइज्ड तो है, लेकिन कितना अपने आप को इंडिपेंडेंट कहता है. This concept is different in Singapore and this concept is different in Australia. So yes, जो सिंगापुर के schools थे, they were internationalized, but they were more secular, but they were also more sensitive to economic changes or globalizing processes. लेकिन they were working under खास किस्म की इनकी जो नेशनल एजुकेशनल मिनिस्ट्री थी उसके नीचे काम कर रहे थे. लेकिन जो आपका ऑस्ट्रेलियन स्कूल्स थे, they were also internationalized, but they were somehow more conservative, and these schools were more Protestant, but they were totally independent. Although they claimed to be independent, सिंगापुर वाले भी अपने आप को independent ही कहते थे, लेकिन actually they were working under the guidelines of the education ministry. लेकिन ये international schools जो थे, they were completely independent. So what they realized was that how the geopolitical positioning of the two states of Singapore and Australia really had an impact on the curriculum of the schools in these places, although both of them were international by nature. So differences of the geopolitical situation was reflected within the schools.